What's going on, guys? Welcome out. Dj-Ology, the science of DJing. We cover everything and anything that has to do with DJing and education. Today we are covering weddings. So I found a good friend of mine, Joe, with Elegant Entertainment, and he does mostly weddings for his company. And you know, we're just going to pick his brain a little bit. So Joe, go ahead and tell him a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe with Elegant Entertainment. I own a DJ, video, photo booth business, and I've been in business for 22 years, doing all kinds of different weddings and events. Most of the events that I have are weddings, so I'm pretty experienced with, you know, things that how they're supposed to go, what to look for with the DJ, and what the DJ is supposed to do as far as making the wedding a success, between, you know, as far as from the beginning all the way to the end of the wedding.
Oh, that's great. Well, since we are an educational channel, we're going to talk mostly about how to educate the up-and-coming DJs that may not know a lot about wedding events. So if you had a top 5 things to tell a new recruit, someone that called you up and say, hey, I want to DJ for you, what were the top 5 things you would look for as a hiring manager or owner, business owner, however you look at it? Well,
the biggest part about hiring a new DJ, and I'd say is being, one, a self-starter, where you don't have to have direction on what has to happen, because once you get to an event, a lot of times you're not going to have someone there to help you out. If you have an audio issue, if something breaks down, you're going to have to fix it yourself. If you don't have the right song or something happens with that, you're going to have to get it. And then probably the biggest one is reliability. You know, whenever I hire a DJ, I make sure they got a reliable car, and make sure that, you know, we do a background check on them, make sure they're not like an alcoholic, you know, they don't they don't have DUIs or whatever, because, you know, that could be a big deal. You know, they get pulled over and then they can't make your event, and then you're like, oh well. So.
No, I would have to say the number one thing that I would take away from that is that if you hire someone, they represent you, your brand, your company, your dependability, who you are as a person, and anybody that would come underneath your wing would have to live up to that umbrella.
Right, well, they'd have to be trained, they'd have to be shown that they're reliable, that they know what they're doing, that they're experienced. You know, you have to really make sure that the person that you're putting on someone's wedding has the knowledge of knowing what songs to play, what songs not to play, being able to follow directions, all those important things throughout a wedding, because you never know, something happens, you know, where the DJ, you know, forgets to do something, and then, you know, the bride's very unhappy. So, you know, probably the biggest point of having a new DJ is making sure they're properly trained, because if you don't properly train them, or you don't make sure that they know what they're doing, and you just throw them on a wedding or event, some companies do that, yeah, and then, you know, they get horrible reviews, and then, you know, that's pretty much it for a company. So
something that people don't take for granted is that we live by this. This is our name, this is our brand. Anybody that comes underneath us has to live up to a standard, because once we get a bad review, you're make or break. Okay, so here's an example. Somebody on Yelp could go on, and then all of a sudden anybody is a critic, and that could hurt you, make or break you, because we live or die by this.
Very true, very true. So, I mean, probably the most important part of a DJ's job is knowing when to show up to an event. You know, you can't show up half hour before an event and expect to be set up and ready to go for a ceremony, do lighting and everything for a reception, and, you know, 20 minutes just ain't gonna happen. You know, you have to at least be there at least a couple hours prior, make sure everything's set, ready to go. You know, if there's some sort of an issue, after an hour after you've set up, you have time for somebody to bring you something, because a lot of times, you know, you don't have that option to just, you know, pull it out of your car, you know.
I'd have to say with that, not a lot of people understand what goes on in the background. There's so many things that are involved with being a DJ, being a good entertainer, being reliable, knowing what to do in those crucial moments. And on top of that, Joe does a lot of these events where he meets with other vendors, and that's how you have to network in order to get more business. We all, you know, you have to spend money to be in a magazine. You got to spend money to go to these bridal shows, and then when we bring somebody on, You have to have the drive, the will, you know, to want to succeed. There's so much competition in this market that we're in that, you know, anybody these days can be considered a DJ, but how good are they? You know, do they live or die by it? Can they get the good reviews? And that's just something that has to be taken into consideration.
Yep, exactly. So, you know, a DJ for a wedding is a lot different than, you know, say a guy who's, you know, DJing in the clubs too, you know, because sometimes bride and grooms, you know, they're trying to make grandma and grandma happy, or grandpa and grandma, and they, you know, have a guy that's playing club music the whole time when they requested, you know, older and newer songs to kind of go along with what their crowd is, and then, you know, things kind of fall apart from there. Or, you know, you have a DJ that you haven't trained properly, and they have a library filled with, you know, music that, you know, isn't appropriate for a wedding, and they play it, and then, you know, some of your guests are like, you know, why did you hire this person? You know, they got like kids or whatever at a wedding, you know, older folks, you know, you don't really want someone who could accidentally do that for a wedding. So you really have to make sure the DJ that you have or that you use has that experience and knows, you know, just common sense not to play that kind of stuff at a wedding. You know, I mean, some couples, you know, that's what they want towards the end of the evening, and we can do that for them, but, you know, normally, like, most everything in our library has the edited versions of all the songs. So I think probably the biggest thing that a lot of people overlook is communication with your DJ, because, you know, a lot of times they're following a certain schedule, and if, you know, things are running late, you know, you have to have a DJ that can go up to you and ask you, hey, do you want to do this at this time, or do you want to wait a little bit later because you guys are behind? You know, there has to be communication between, you know, also the DJ and some of the other vendors that you hire, the photographers, the videographers, because if a DJ just starts doing introductions or does a first dance, and
my favorite, doing
the people
toast
are,
and
you know, the toast, that's what I'm saying. You know, they're gonna miss it. And then the person, you know, they're gonna come from outside or wherever they were and be like, oh my God, that just happened, and like, yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's not like you can do it over again with a wedding. It's one of those things where
you gotta spend the money, you gotta have a professional vendor, you gotta have a DJ that's not gonna go ahead with cake cutting without a photographer in the room. You know,
yeah.
Picture will last a lifetime, but the cake cutting will last 10 minutes.
It will.
Very important, very important. So it's something that we take a lot of pride in, to make sure that we have trained staff that can handle pretty much anything that can happen. There's so many different things that can happen to you at any given moment, and then you have to be able to either stretch time or be like, okay, we can wait. You know, the bride's dress is getting bustled. That's a big one. How do you handle these situations? How do you handle maybe a wedding planner that's like, oh, we got to do this by a certain time, or the food won't be any good anymore. We got to do this because the photographer's leaving an hour before the party ends, so the bride and groom have got to get the entire wedding party out so they could do like a mock bridal exit.
Right.
So there's all these different things that you just have to be able to, you know, bounce with.
Yeah, and a DJ really has to pay attention, because a lot of times, you know, if you're having a send-off towards the end of the evening and a lot of your guests are leaving early, you know, you may want to let the bride and groom know, hey, do you want to do the send-off now and then continue to party towards the end so you got enough people to do the send-off. Just, you know, little things like that, you know, a DJ really has to pay attention to.
Of course. So Joe, you've done countless weddings, and what year did you start here in Orlando?
In Orlando, I started in 2003.
2003, and you've done mostly weddings, right?
I started out just doing weddings, mostly weddings. I did, you know, some quinceaneras and some corporate parties. Yeah. You know,
we do a lot of corporate parties here in
Orlando. That type of stuff. So, but mostly it's been weddings, though. That's, you know, what I'm good at. That's, you know, what I like doing.
That's good, because this is a wedding segment.
Yes.
Cool. So we talked a bunch about what a new DJ should be looking for when they're looking to get into the wedding market, because there's so many different things that are going on. On top of that, you still have to sell an engaged couple on your services with all this competition that's out there. So how do you do that? Like, what goes on in your mind when you sit down with a
when I sit down with a client or an engaged couple, I want to find out what they're looking for, not what I'm looking for.
Of course.
But I get what they want for their event, and then I tell them what I can do for them. You know, and because if they're having a wedding of 50 people and it's during the daytime, I'm not going to be trying to sell them, you know, my biggest lighting package, you know, especially if the venue has all windows or something like that, and you know, and that's, you know, wasted time, and the people listen to you talk about the whole lighting and everything else, and then they'll be like, well, our wedding's during the day, and then you could have avoided that whole conversation.
It's good to ask questions.
Exactly. So you ask as many questions as you can and let them tell you what they want for their wedding, what their envision is. Even, you know, you can ask them, hey, what kind of music you guys into? You know, you can talk about, you don't have to talk about their wedding either. Like, how did you guys meet? You know, that type of stuff, you know, just to get to know people, you know, because there's some couples you may not be a right fit for. It just happens.
It's true.
You know, they want, you know, somebody totally different personality. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. You know, but you have to make sure that you click with the couple, because if they really click with you, you like a lot of the same stuff that they do, the wedding's going to go absolutely amazing. So.
But it goes back to what Joe says. You ask them questions, and then you tell them how you can fulfill their needs, because you provide a service. You may be really good at what you do. You just have to show them through a mirror how you fit their vision too. Right.
Exactly. So, and there's a lot of couples out there, some of them, they don't know what they want. They're like, we're getting married, no idea. I just need a DJ. I need someone to play music. And then you have to go in there and tell them, yeah, then you have to tell them exactly what you can do for them. And then you can still ask them questions, you know, on what do you think? And if they don't know, then you just say, well, this is what people normally do, kind of give them advice that way. So, and there would be a lot of couples that'll say, hey, do you got a mix I can listen to? Or did this, and I rarely ever give them a mix or whatever, because a lot of times if you send them a mix and they don't like the music in it or they don't like the songs in it, then you might lose that couple just because, you know, that's not their style of music. Where, you know, that's why you gotta kind of customize everything for a client, because if they see the, you know, the customization of the songs that they want, because maybe they're a big country couple, you know, and you're sending them all rap stuff that you sent them for the mix, and they're going to be like, no, I really don't like that DJ. So, you know.
So if there's any aspiring DJs out there,
if you want to get into the scene, what I would suggest doing is practice your emceeing skills first. You know, do mock introductions where, you know, because especially if you're going to do weddings, you're really going to want to put a scripts together. Do introductions over and over and over again till you got it down to a science, until that is just secondhand nature, because that is probably one of the most important things when, you know, you're first introducing a couple and putting them into their first dance and all that. It's one of the most stressful parts of a DJ's job, is that 10 minutes of introducing everyone, getting their names correct, getting the bride and groom in their first dance, getting everyone seated, doing the toast. That whole section point you have to practice over and over again. Once you get that, the rest kind of flows together as far as, you know, playing the music, and then you have to remember to do like a bouquet and garter and, you know, whatever other events they got. But to me, that's probably the most important thing for starting out as a DJ, is to get that down. Because I know most of the DJs, when I first started out, I was terrified to do introductions. Yeah. Absolutely terrified. And the first wedding I had was an Asian wedding where the names were really, really difficult.
That was your first one?
First one. Oh, and even the groom was like, don't worry about it. I totally understand they're hard names. And, you know, if I would have been a more experienced DJ, I would probably practice those beforehand, and then I would have done a little bit better with them. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But as far as, you know, learning what you need to do for introduction, like practice those steps, that whole process for that portion, and I think you'll be a good DJ. And then second step after that will be to find reliable microphones. That's huge, because you don't want a microphone cutting out in the middle of a ceremony. Horrible. That's people will look at you in the middle of a ceremony. Or, you know, like when you're doing introductions, or if someone's doing a toast, you don't want that either, because they will be fairly upset with you if that keeps happening. So make sure you have backup equipment. You know, one big thing that people don't understand too, or like DJs that are just coming into the business, is I found out like the hard way was when I switched from CDs over to the digital, was when I started using a laptop, is you always want to make sure you have a second power adapter to plug into your laptop, because those things go out randomly
all the time.
And if you're not getting any power, you have limited time before that laptop dies on you. So if no one else has another power adapter, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, that, I mean, that one's a big one.
Yeah, I keep double. I'm a big fan. If you don't have two, you don't have any.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 laptops, 2 power adapters.
That's one thing I said. You can never have enough backup as a DJ. Never.
Yeah, you have no idea. Like, I did one event, and then like I was plugged into a bad outlet, and then it fried everything. But I had to go back out to the van and get another setup. And like, okay, we're not plugging into that outlet anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, being like, nope.
It happens. It happens. So yeah, practice your intros. Make sure you got backup equipment. Make sure your mixing skills are up to par after you complete the other 2, and then, you know, then you might be ready to start with another country. Yeah, yep. I would say that those are top three things, and make sure your car is reliable. If you're riding in a junker car and you don't know if it's going to start or not, probably want to get a different car if you're going to start DJing, because if you do not show up on time to an event, or you show up late, or you don't show up at all, whoever you're working for, or if you're starting your own company, that's going to be it, because...
Well, you know what they say in show business, right? You're as good as your last show.
Yeah, that's pretty much it too. Because, I mean, you know, even though like some guys, you know, like myself or Scott, we can always find somebody as a replacement if something does happen, or maybe, you know, get the job done if they work for us. But if they're doing it on their own, you want to make sure you have, you know.
Don't want to be the weakest link in your own.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have a reliable vehicle, because that is very, very, very important.
Whew, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for tuning in. Dj-Ology, the science of DJing. Joe with Elegant Entertainment. If you're in Orlando, or you even want to travel, like, he'll go anywhere. Yep. Make sure to look us up. We're going to definitely make sure you got his link, and Dj-Ology as well. But thank you guys for tuning in, and that'll do it for this episode.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Scott.